I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back. I hope you've had a good week. I'm now back at home after some time away, and the kids are back at school after half term, which I'm really going to enjoy because now we're on the home straight of exams in my house. So I'm going to enjoy my last few weeks in a child-free house before they're all over in a few weeks' time, and I'm going to have my boys around a lot more. But I'm looking forward to that as well, I think. So thanks for those of you who've listened to last week's episode all about meditation and mindfulness. And I've had lots of really wonderful comments about it. So thank you so much for taking the time. I do appreciate how busy everyone is. So it really does mean the world. What's really interesting and I find really fascinating is I've had quite a number of comments from some of you saying that you'd really love to do more meditation. You understand how it could really help, and it's something that you'd really like to do more of. However, a lot of you are saying it's very difficult to find the time to fit in. I totally get this because I was exactly the same. But now my response to those of you saying that, those people who've said that to me, is probably, it's a bit of a harsh one, but it's actually the truth, that actually we all have the same amount of time. But it's actually about how you choose to spend it. So you do have the time. If it's something you really want to do, you've got the time. What it does mean, though, is it probably means that meditation isn't a priority for you at this moment. It's not a priority yet. Because when it does become a priority, you'll have time to do it. You'll make time. You can find 10 minutes in a day, whenever that might be. Even if it's getting up 10 minutes earlier, 10 minutes is nothing, but you have to decide you want to do it and then commit to it. So for me, it did take me a while for it to become a habit. Exercise, I've always found to be quite an easy habit to kind of incorporate into my day-to-day, but meditation I found really quite a tricky one. But what I ended up doing is I found that tacking it onto an already existing thing that I do made it so much easier. So what I do is I generally always meditate after my shower in the morning. So whilst my hair is drying a little bit, I sit down, and now it's really become a habit. And it really did start with sitting down for 5 minutes, and that was it. And gradually I've increased it, and now actually I sit down for about 25 minutes. But you don't have to do 25 minutes. But you might want to. You might find that you actually want to. But starting with even 2 minutes is better. And once that habit becomes instilled and ingrained in you, you'll find that it's just something you look forward to doing. But I'm not saying that I do it every single morning religiously, because I'm human. And there are some mornings where it falls by the wayside and I don't do it. But I really notice those mornings when I don't. And I feel so much better on the days that I do. So I think I'm going to do a whole solo episode all about how to create good habits and how to do the things that we all know are good for us, but actually we find really difficult to do. So yeah, let me know if that's something you would find really helpful. Right, it's time now to move on to this week's episode. This week, I talked to Rachel Weiss, who is passionate about getting everyone, men and women, talking about menopause. Back in 2017, Rachel set up the first Menopause Café, where people could come in and drink tea, eat cake, and talk about menopause. And now it's turned into the Menopause Café charity, which supports volunteers worldwide to host pop-up events in person and online, where people continue to drink tea, eat cake, and talk menopause. It makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because perimenopause and menopause can feel like a really lonely time when many of us can feel invisible. And there are so many reasons for this. It might be children leaving home or caring for aging parents or even coping with the death of a parent. There might be separation or divorce. I mean, there are so many things. Plus, because of how society views aging here in the West, many of us start to feel old. We start to feel unattractive and really begin to lose our sense of identity. And all of this can increase feelings of isolation and then depression. And studies show that symptoms of depression occur at a 40% greater rate among perimenopausal women than in the general population. That's massive. And we also know that suicide rates are highest in women between 45 and 55. But we do also know that talking to others, and often someone outside of your close-knit circle, it really, really helps. So in this episode, we then go on to talk about Rachel's latest project, which is an online menopause festival, which is later out this month, called Flushfest. And then also about how this stage of life is a great opportunity to start being kinder to yourself. And I'd go as far as to say that learning to be kind and compassionate towards yourself and prioritizing self-care, I do bang on about this, I'm sorry, but it is probably one of the most important things you can do to ensure you enjoy what's left of life. Because let's be honest, we are here only for a really short time in the whole grand scheme of things. So we want to enjoy it. So Rachel is also, she's a counsellor and a coach. So she truly understands the power of talking things through. So without further ado, please welcome today's guest, Rachel Weiss. So Rachel, one of the aims of this podcast really is to help other women realise that they're not alone in what they might be experiencing, particularly in their late 30s, in their 40s, when things might be starting to change in their bodies, because there are so many different perimenopause and menopause symptoms. So I always think it's useful to hear about other people's experiences of menopause, whether they might be a really good one, that you've sailed through it, there've been no issues, or whether actually it's been the other side of the coin and not so good. So I'm curious, were you well prepared and have you sailed through it, or has it been a long, hard road? How's it been for you?
Well, a mixture. I wasn't prepared at all. I had no idea that I even was perimenopausal. I didn't know the word perimenopause. So this is when I was about 50. So I was completely unprepared and I sailed through it. So it's a kind of mixture of the two. So far, things may change.
And how old are you now?
I'm now, goodness, good question. I'm 56 and I'm still perimenopausal. So I haven't had the full 12 months without a period.
Okay, wow, that's interesting, because that would be,
that's late,
I suppose,
yeah.
classed late, wouldn't it? But
well, I don't know. 51's the average, but what I've
yes.
never found is what's the standard deviation. So I don't know what the actual 51's average. That means half of the people menopause after that. But I don't know what the spread is.
Yes. So no symptoms at all?
Well, I have irregular periods, so that's a symptom. And even, let me think, 10 years ago, so when I was 46, my periods became heavier sometimes. So I'd never leaked before, but suddenly I was having to check the chair before I stood up and remember to change my menstrual pads more often than usual. So when I say sail through, I've had symptoms, but they've all been quite, I would say, manageable. Maybe I'm just an optimistic person. But I think more of these is changes in my life, Polly. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Other than them being dreadful symptoms, it's just I'm now in this third stage of my life where my body's a bit different. I took up running. I'd never done exercise before. But all that I've read, once I discovered about perimenopause, seemed to say that bone health is really important and muscle health. So I hated sport at school, but I forced myself to run occasionally, maybe once a week. I think of it like brushing my teeth. I cannot honestly say I enjoy it. People talk about the endorphins of exercise and running. I just think of it like brushing my teeth. It is an investment for my future.
But surely you get that little sense of pride and achievement once you've finished your run.
Yeah, afterwards, yes. I definitely feel smug and feel I deserve all sorts of treats. So when I think about it, talking to you, my perimenopause has been a time of transition and lifestyle changes, which perhaps have now been informed by what I've discovered about the menopause. So I eat less now, because before I was just eating the same as I did when I was 20 and 30. And guess what? Then I put on weight. Mm-hmm. So I've had to learn to eat less and less sugar and to exercise more. But luckily, all these things are good for me anyway.
Yeah. And they're good for anybody, whether they're menopausal or not. Exactly.
It's good preparation for a longer, healthier life. Whereas I think in my 20s and 30s, I didn't give my body a second thought much. Mm-hmm.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. So would you say that you now are more aware of your body and you now have learned to listen to your body more? Do you feel like you're more in tune with your body than you probably ever have been?
Yes, either because it's telling me to. I think of menopause as nature's wake-up call, kicking us up the butt and going, hey, listen to me, put me first for a change, because we tend to put work or other people first. So I think it's actually a good thing that our bodies go, wait, you've got to look after me now. Otherwise I'm going on strike. I appreciate that for some people it's horrendous, so I don't want to gloss over their suffering. But for me, it just feels like a shift of gears where I've had to slow down a bit, pay more attention, look after myself more, put myself first for once, which I either couldn't or didn't when there were children and work and everything else going on. Well, there's still work going on, but the children have left home.
Yeah, I mean, it's that really difficult time, isn't it? Often when we have children at home, when we are working hard and we're being pulled in all directions, which is when it's kind of perfect. It's a perfect storm of not listening to your body because you're listening to everybody else's. Yes.
Can we throw elderly parents
and yes,
as well?
exactly.
Or not even parents, aunts, uncles. You know, there are elderly relatives who need care, and work often gets more demanding.
Yeah, exactly.
In our perimenopause years, because we're coming into our prime.
So I'm totally curious then, Rachel, you have gone on to set up these incredible menopause cafes, which are now not only across the country, but worldwide. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you started your first menopause cafe, you started in 2017. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I'd love to ask you is, if you were not suffering with perimenopause symptoms or menopause symptoms, what on earth was the trigger? What caused you to want to set up these menopause cafes? Because often many of us working within this perimenopause, menopause space, the reason is because we've all had a really terrible experience and didn't know anything about it. So what spurred you on?
Well, I watched a TV programme by Kirsty Walk on BBC called Menopause and Me. I only watched it because I was 50 and thought I probably ought to find out about this stuff. And while I was watching it, I realised that there's more to menopause than hot flushes. So there's a whole range of symptoms, physical, emotional, cognitive, and that people don't talk about it. So I thought, well, that's a bit odd. Usually friends will talk about stuff, whether I'm interested or not. You know, they'll talk about having sex even if I'm not having sex. They'll talk about having babies even if I'm not having babies. All of these things. So what inspired me to start it was, I think, my day job. I'm a counsellor and a coach. So I know that talking helps. And I'd been running death cafes about death and dying. So I had the model. So I just turned to my husband and said, do you think anyone would be interested in a menopause cafe? I guess I saw a need. I didn't think of it as my need particularly, but I was curious. But I could see a need that, I suppose it was compassion. People are isolated and alone and suffering. And that doesn't need to happen. If I could create pop-up events and spaces where people could talk about menopause, that would be a good thing to do. And maybe it's my faith or my upbringing. It was like, well, if I've got the talents and I can do something useful, and I've got a bit more time now the kids have left home, why not do it? So I just ran the first pop-up menopause cafe event in Perth, not knowing if anyone would turn up and if there'd ever be another one. You know, there wasn't a plan of this will spread and become a charity and trademarked and international. But 30 people turned up and they really talked about menopause.
What stage of menopause were they in, those first women?
We had the whole range. I mean, they weren't all women. I must say that a menopause cafe is open to all ages and all genders. We said that from the beginning because we think everyone needs to know about it. So there was maybe one younger woman who came to find out. There were two men whose wives were going through menopause or perimenopause. There were some people who'd gone through it, which was lovely. We love hearing from the postmenopausal women who tell us there's light at the end of the tunnel, there's postmenopausal zest, this too will pass. But the vast majority were already in menopause. Because remember, back in 2017, most of us didn't know what perimenopause was. We didn't know it was a thing.
No.
I mean, thought you had to wait till your periods had stopped. We didn't even know you had to wait 12 months. We just thought they stopped. We knew nothing. You all know so much more now. Yeah.
I know the vision that you had in 2017 is quite amazing, really, because you're right, a lot has happened, particularly here in the UK, since 2017 in terms of awareness of menopause, perimenopause. No one even knew that word, perimenopause. So to actually have that vision that people needed to talk and bring those people together, I think is really quite remarkable. So Rachel, what might someone expect when they turn up to a menopause cafe?
It could be online or in person, and it could be open to the public or just for within a workplace. So let's say it's open to the public and it's in person, then you'd wander into a cafe where it's held, and it would just look like any cafe. People wander in by mistake because all you see is groups of people at tables, 3 or 4 people chatting. So the volunteer host will welcome you and say, please go and sit at tables and talk about menopause. So you could get somebody who's been through it, someone who's going through it, someone who knows nothing. They share stories, share tips. Every 20 minutes or so, the host will say, right, get up and move to another table, have another conversation. And that's it. There's no speakers, no experts. Just giving people space to talk about it, to share their stories, to ask questions.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. However, I'm just thinking back to when I was in the depths of my perimenopause, and actually all I wanted to do was hide away, not talk to anyone, and the idea of walking into a cafe with would be incredibly daunting.
Sure. Yeah.
But I actually think it's probably exactly what I needed to do, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like I wasn't alone. So to anyone listening who is feeling a little bit alone, how could you persuade them to actually giving it a go? Because it might be just what they need. You might like to
try one of the online events first, if that feels less scary for some people. So again, if you look on the website under events, there are online cafes on quite often. It is nerve-wracking to walk into a room full of, so maybe bring a friend with you, could help, but probably you may not have a friend to bring if you haven't talked about menopause, or a partner or anybody. Remember, they don't have to be menopausal. So somebody might be willing to go with you. They can always sit in a corner. Otherwise, we've had people who turn up and you don't have to talk. You can sit at the table and just listen. And also, don't be too hard on yourself. If you're not ready to go to a menopause cafe yet, that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't feel even more guilty than you probably do already. Do what you can. Maybe that's just looking at websites. Maybe that's just an online event.
But talking about it, as we know, is such a positive thing to do. And I think, as we know, generations gone past, nobody talked about it, our mothers, our grandmothers, and they just soldiered on and they just kind of got on with it. Whereas now I really feel the taboo is rising and it is so helpful. Mm-hmm. Why do you think, Rachel, that there has been such a taboo about menopause?
I think it's complex. I put it down to gendered ageism, so that becoming an older woman, at least in Western society, is seen as a bad thing. So why would you talk about menopause? Because that lets on that you're an older woman. Whereas having your first period is exciting, generally. Well, it's scary, but society celebrates that, becoming fertile, because it's seen as a positive thing to be moving into becoming a fertile woman. We don't value moving into this third stage of life, becoming an older, wiser, calmer mentor. Do you know all of that? So I think that's part of the problem, that people don't want to say I'm going through the menopause because they've told me that means saying that they're becoming older, and at the moment that's seen as a bad thing. So this is huge. That requires a whole societal change, that we can see this third stage of life as a positive, productive, liberating one. As long as we dismiss old people, people will feel some shame around menopause. Also, we haven't until now talked about periods much. That's changing, thank goodness. The next generation are better at this. So if you've never talked about your periods, it's kind of hard to talk about them stopping.
Yes.
So I think talking about menopause ties in with talking about menstruation. And it's not just making it a positive thing, it's also talking about the downsides too. So yes, in our house we had 2 girls and a boy. It's like if one of them's on their period, they can go, I feel crap today because I got my period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. You know, in the workplace, if someone says, how are you today? It's all right to say, oh, I'm a bit off colour because I've got a cold. But do you ever hear someone going, oh, I'm a bit off colour first day of my period?
Yeah.
And why not? So if we can start, yes, from childhood at school and at home, that it's okay for a girl to go, oh, I've got cramps today, then that should make it easier. Why do we hide it? Why do we stuff tampons up our sleeves and pretend it's not happening?
Mm.
I don't know.
So it sounds to me that your real superpower, Rachel, is being able to talk about things, get things out in the open, encourage others to talk through the cafes, through obviously being a counsellor and being a coach as well. And the other big thing which you are doing in your life is something called Flush Fest, which is a menopause festival, which is in its fourth year and it's coming up. So maybe you could just tell me a little bit about, again, how did this all come about? What is it all about? And what's going on with it this year?
Well, Flush Fest started from the Menopause Café. So at these pop-up events, which can be run by anyone with facilitation skills. You don't need to know about menopause to hold a menopause cafe. And the whole point is to talk. However, people said at the cafes, actually, we'd really like to hear an expert talking about menopause. And remember, this back in 2018, we had the first one. Now there are loads of people talking about menopause and talks. There was nothing. So we started Flush Fest, which was the world's only menopause festival. When I Googled menopause festival, there were no links. Have you ever Googled something and nothing comes up? Menopause festival didn't go together because people haven't celebrated it. It's been seen as doom and gloom and probably death. So this, our fourth menopause festival, Flush Fest 22, it's online. It's been online since the pandemic. And it's a lovely mix. The idea is just that people can find their tribe, get together. It's an interactive platform called Air Meet, where you can chat to people in the lounge. We kick off with a comedy evening on the Friday night, the 17th of June. So we've got the Marsh family, who are an internet sensation of songs, and various comedians riffing on the theme of menopause and midlife and bodies. Because, you know, if you laugh about things, that helps too.
Yes, I like that. We need to absolutely kind of see the light side of things sometimes. I know I don't want to take away, as you said earlier, from people who are really suffering at all. But you're right, we could all do with a good laugh sometime.
I think so. Not in the sense of laughing at people
No.
who have hot flash, laughing with each other at the ridiculous things we do, like forgetting things or, you know, whatever. And then all day on the Saturday, we start with a wonderful headlining act. Kirsty Walk, who's now the patron of our charity, will be interviewing the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon. These are two high-profile, respected women going through or have gone through menopause while being in the public eye. So I think a lot of us who are in jobs can learn from how they are tackling it. And in the afternoon, there's a whole range of workshops to choose from, interactive ones. You can learn about exercise with Amanda Thebe, or learn about working through the menopause with Dinah Tobias, or go on an assertiveness workshop, because we often lose our confidence in perimenopause and menopause. So we say, learn a little, laugh a lot.
Like that. I'd love to just talk a little bit about this losing confidence, as you said, one of your workshops, because I do think, and it kind of probably goes hand in hand with this whole taboo of menopause and of aging and this societal narrative which has been playing out for so long, that we do, as we get older, lose confidence. What would you say to women? How can we really address that kind of feeling of...
I think it depends what your confidence is based on, frankly. If your confidence to date has been based on other people admiring you, that shifts as we get older. I find people do admire me, but it's no longer for my looks or my youth or my whatever. If your confidence has been based on what other people think of you, that can change. If it's been based on how you look, that can change. So it's a real shift in self-worth and self-esteem, about valuing yourself, not just for what you do, but for who you are. And that's really quite hard for some of us. So I think that's all part of the slowing down and the confidence. There are tips you can do to build your self-confidence, and seeing a therapist is a great way. An easy tip is just write down the achievements you're proud of and the qualities you value, because it's not just achievements. And if you can't think of any qualities, maybe ask 3 trusted friends or colleagues to tell you 2 things they appreciate. And that's a really simple exercise. Ask 3 friends or colleagues to give you 2 things, and you'll be surprised at what you get. And keep that written down somewhere and look at it when you're feeling worthless. So it's not an easy thing, but it's something I think it's a life task for us to do. And maybe we've dodged it until now, looking after ourselves, being kind to ourselves.
I've really noticed, talking to lots of other people through this podcast particularly, that the more people I talk to who are going through or have gone through menopause, I realise that a key driver to their current happiness and their current wellness is that they have really found a sense of purpose, a real sense of who they are. And lots of it is driven because of menopause or through menopause or their experience of menopause. Would you agree that finding your purpose, if you haven't already found it, is an important...
Or it could be a new purpose.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, is it an important part to having a happy menopause, do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, I think particularly for people who've had children, for mothers, that may have been their purpose. And menopause often coincides with the children leaving home, and you have to find a new purpose in life. And that's quite tough if you've spent 18 years or 20. And for people who are not mothers as well, the main purpose might have been work or a hobby. And when people come to a Menopause Café, initially they talk about the physical stuff, but then we can move on to the psychological and the philosophical. What is the point of life? What is my purpose? These are the questions of this third stage of life that we hit. It's like an existential crisis, but we come out of it wiser, calmer, more at peace with ourselves. It's like we went through turbulent puberty, didn't we, to come out the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now there's this turbulent, I mean, men go through it too. It's just not quite as dramatic for them. Who am I? What's the point of life? What gives me joy and pleasure? Even the tiny little things like hearing the birds song, and to reflect on that. At the end of each day, there is a good exercise to write down 3 things that went well today. So I might write down, I had a great chat with Polly today, and I listened to the bird song this morning. And, they don't have to be big things, but if you can retrain your brain, at the end of each day, write down 3 things that went well. And after about 3 weeks, your brain gets better at spotting what went well, rather than maybe your brain is used to spotting what went badly.
Yeah, it's about shifting that perspective, isn't it?
It is.
It's very easy when you're very, very busy and when you're not feeling particularly strong in your body to
hard.
Really, we have that negative bias. We focus on the negative. Exactly. So it's really about, as you say, I mean, I always tell my clients, so important that we try as hard as it is just to slow down, give ourselves a little bit of time at some point in your day so you can actually start becoming aware of where your thoughts are going, what you're beginning to focus on. And if we can start sort of shining a torch on where they're going, and then we can start kind of trying to shift that perspective. Oh, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe there was something which went well today. And I love that tip. Once we start focusing on the good things, then we see more and more of the good, rather than when we focus on the bad, we see more of the bad.
Yeah. I mean, the bad still happens. We're not being Pollyanna and pretending nothing. It does happen, but sometimes we forget, even on the worst day, something went well. And everyone is busy. Even if you can spend 5 minutes, if you can find 5 minutes for yourself each day. For me, that used to mean getting up early because kids, but 5 minutes to just stop still and guilt-free say, this is my 5 minutes. I'm just going to sit and be and notice how I am. Can help.
Oh, it totally does. And it can literally just be sitting, doing nothing, letting your mind wander, staring out the window, or it could be 5 minutes of just closing your eyes and listening to your breathing. Mm-hmm. It could be 5 minutes of listening to a meditation. It doesn't really matter. It's just 5 minutes to yourself to give yourself that break. And it does make a huge amount of difference.
And I just want to encourage people, because learning self-compassion is hard, I think, particularly if you've not practiced it before, if you're used to driving yourself hard, judging yourself by your achievements and what people think. But it's a real opportunity to make the next 20 or 30 years, or however long we've got left, better. Yes. And sometimes it takes menopause to make us realise that. And yes, that is separate from people who are suffering terribly, certainly physically, and where medication can help. But it's medication, but also lifestyle changes, and also a mindset change. And that's why at Flushfest 22, we've got workshops on medical stuff, mindset change, and lifestyle.
Yeah, the mindset, I think, is really so important, because I think I'm talking from my own experience. I went through my life up until my 40s of really not really being aware of my mindset. I look back now and go, God, I wish I had been much more aware of where my mind was going. But, I had no reason to. I was living my life. But it was really in only my 40s where I discovered where my thoughts were going. I discovered how to become aware of my thoughts. And it is a complete and utter game changer, because you have so much power over your mind when you start to slow down and notice it. And that's all you need to do. It's just literally slowing down and noticing it. And suddenly you realize that you can shift perspectives actually fairly. I wouldn't want to use the word easy, because it does take practice. It is a practice.
It's simple
it is a
and
practice.
difficult. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Complex, yeah. To stop and notice what your thoughts are rather than getting carried away with the thoughts, and to calm one's body and notice the breathing. One tip I give is talk to yourself like you would to a dear friend. Many of us talk to ourselves very harshly. So if you're feeling crap at the end of the day because you feel you've done nothing or upset everyone, just think, what would I say to a good friend who said that? Often that helps.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit of self-compassion can go a long way. What's your vision for the future, Rachel? So you've got the Menopause Cafes going on, you've got Flush Fest, and you have a day job of a counsellor. So you're obviously very busy, and you obviously have a huge amount of dedication to the cause of raising awareness of menopause and supporting people through it. So what is that? What is your vision?
My vision is that Menopause Café charity will no longer be needed, so we can fold. Because once menopause becomes an acceptable topic that people can talk about non-judgmentally, we won't need menopause cafes anymore, because you'll be able to just talk to your friends and colleagues. So that's my hope. I think Flush Fest will be needed for a little while, because there doesn't seem to be many other people holding such a holistic menopause festival. But maybe eventually that won't be needed either, as more and more comedians and speakers, just as menopause gets incorporated into general well-being, I hope will be redundant. That's my vision for the future. As an intermediate vision, I would love to see more menopause cafes worldwide. So if any of your listeners want to be a volunteer host, you don't need to know anything about menopause. You need facilitation skills and a friend who will facilitate it with you.
Okay. So as this is called the Positive Perimenopause Podcast, I always like to leave my listeners with a practical, actionable tip. I know you have given already some practical tips which you can take away, but if there was one thing you could give people listening to take away, what would that be?
I think remember that this too will pass. Maybe remember back to puberty. It takes years and it is turmoil, but it's a journey to a new stage of life. So maybe picture the light at the end of the tunnel. And talk about it. Please talk about it, whether it's with your GP or your colleagues or your friends. You know you're not alone.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's been really lovely to talk to you. You know, your dedication to the cause through all of this, all of your work is very, very admirable, particularly as it's not for profit. Yeah, congratulations and all the best with Flush Fest 2022. If people want to find out more about Flush Fest, Menopause Cafes, can you give everybody all the details, please?
Well, please follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, as Menopause Café, but mainly go to our website, www.menopausecafe.net, and you'll find all our social media links at the bottom, a list of the cafes coming up in the next few weeks, and details about Flush Fest. So www.menopausecafe.net. And remember that we're all volunteers running this. About 4 volunteers squeezing this into our spare time. So we don't respond immediately.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel. I will put all of those details in the show notes. Now, if you're listening, there's obviously a very good chance that you are perimenopausal. But how prepared are you for this transitional phase of life? If you want to know a little bit more, you can take a quiz which I have set up to help you identify whether you're doing all you can to sail through this stage of life, or perhaps to see if it's time to take your head out of the sand and face up to what's coming. It's 3 minutes. It's just a bit of fun, but actually there might be some really good pointers for you. To take the quiz, you can go to pollywarren.com and you'll see it there. And if you want to come over and tell me what you thought of this episode, please do. You can email me at info@pollywarren.com, or you can come over to Instagram at pollywarrencoaching. And if you've enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world if you could come over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review and subscribe this podcast, because it really makes such a massive difference to how this podcast gets out there. I'd be so, so grateful. Anyway, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I really, truly appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful week.